What's going on, guys? Today I'm bringing you back yet another Q&A, so if you got any questions, post yours down below and let's get started. Hey Alex, how do you count the volume from the compound exercise for the secondary muscle groups? For example, do you count one set of pull-ups as one set of biceps volume, and what if the intensity is higher on the set versus being lower for hypertrophy work? Does that make a difference in counting the volume for the secondary muscle? Thanks in advance, I wish you all the best. Same to you, brother. Alright, an easy way to simplify this is to look at the secondary muscles involved in a compound movement. You mentioned the chin-ups. The back is what pretty much gets you from point A to B, but the biceps obviously help. So I wouldn't count one set of chin-ups as one full set of biceps. That means if you did 10 sets of chin-ups a week, it didn't mean you did 10 sets of biceps a week, therefore you don't need to curl. That's how people get lagging arms, by the way, by following this type of minimalist advice. What it might equate to potentially is 5 sets for biceps. Therefore, you're doing half. But is that really scientific? Is that really accurate? Could we say with 100% conviction that one set of chin-ups is equivalent to half a set for biceps? I mean, it's a good estimation and it probably is true to a certain extent, but there's a lot of biomechanical factors to look into. So I would say that's the smartest, most efficient way of calculating it, just for the sake of not driving yourself mad, especially if you're not gonna only do chin-ups. But I can't tell you that it's factually a half set. It might be a quarter set or maybe a little bit more depending on your muscle weaknesses and leverages. So let's just round it to half a set. That means you should probably do 1 or 2 curls at the end of your program. But for most of you, 1 is probably all you need on different workout days though. So if you're training twice a week on pulling exercises, you want to curl twice a week. Or you do 4 curls a week and it's a freaking done deal, which is pretty much what you see in a lot of these bro routines, but it's done once a week. So I suppose that the weekly volume in that case kind of makes sense. And I would apply the same logic to pressing exercises. If you do a bench press, don't think that that was a full set for the triceps, even if it's a close grip, even if you're adding in a lot of band or chain tension. You want to do some isolation work at the very end, which could be 1 push down, 1 extension. That's all you really have to do. So just simplify everything by saying it's a half set. In regards to your other question about percentages, yeah, I do think about this. Like if I'm doing a 1 max at the start of my workout, that's 3 attempts. But I wouldn't say that counts as 3 really good hypertrophy work sets because it's only 3 reps total. That's like saying that 1 set of 3 would be really conducive to getting jacked. Obviously, it can accumulate in the long term, but you can't tell me that's more efficient than doing 3 sets of 5 or 3 sets of 10. So although you can gain muscle in any rep range, we do have to factor in total workload and what makes the most practical sense. So again, we can simplify that part. Let's say if you're doing anything under 3 reps, you can count it as a half set. So whenever you're going excessively heavy, subtract 50%. Same goes for the secondary muscle groups on that compound lift. Hey Alex, it's normal that my barbell row max is about 185 and my bench 295. I use decent volume on my back training, 5 sets of 10 most of the time. Is it true that I should row just as much as I bench? Okay, nuanced question here. First of all, are you saying 185 is your 1 rep max, or that's what you use for 5x10? Because I will say on higher volume rows, you're probably not gonna go as heavy as you think. Even in my case, I don't usually go above 225, 250. Though I could go heavier if I choose to. So when people say your row should be equivalent to your bench, I view it in the testing application, not how you should actually train. For example, I did 275 for 3x10 on the close grip bench with a pause and perfect form. Could I replicate that exactly on a barbell row? No. Yet my back is one of my best body parts and it's super strong. But if I introduce a little bit of body English, easily match it. From day 1, I could do that. So this is what I've seen over and over again, including the people who recommend this. Look at Brian Alster, nothing but love and respect for him. He's a really good strength coach and he knows what he's talking about. But examine his workout videos, look at the bench form and the row form. It's not 1-to-1. So I like the idea of it. It sounds good on paper, but for most of you, it's not going to be that close if your bench is actually really up there. Now, if you're an intermediate lifter, yeah, it probably will be closer. But when you're benching the high 3s, good luck. That's all I'm going to say. Hey, I got a labor job and do a lot of grinding work. The tool I use puts a lot of stress on my elbows. Do you recommend to take off, thus pain on my elbows? I do push-pull legs, by the way. Thanks for the content. Greetings from Poland. Well, greetings from Canada. I'm assuming you already watched my elbow pain solution video, so I'm not gonna keep repeating the messages in there. Instead, I'll provide some different training advice. For one, I'd highly recommend you wear elbow sleeves. This is what I've been doing for a long time now because I got hypermobile elbows. And although the pain isn't there, I'm in this for maximum protection and longevity. So you should do the same thing, not only during the workouts, but possibly during the job itself if it doesn't restrict your movement too much or it's very comfortable to wear. And by the way, I have seen people do this on some job sites, but usually it's just on one side because maybe they have an injured right elbow, so they'll put it right there. But even if you're not injured, you're getting a little bit of wear and tear, get some warmth and compression in the area. Why not? And the second thing within the training sessions is to pick low stress tricep exercises on the elbows. Most of that is going to be done off cables. Generally, it tends to feel a little bit better. So your classic tricep push down, ramp up the volume on those instead of doing more extensions. However, if you do want to perform extensions, dumbbells is your best friend with the neutral grip and some rollback action. Don't perform the high stress variations where your arm is getting close to your throat or nose level. The further back, more so resembling a pullover motion, will serve you much more. Finally, consider the strength curve itself. A lot of the elbow stress comes in that bent position right here, not necessarily the final part of the extension. Therefore, you can add chains to your extensions. This way we're minimizing the bottom overuse, which is pretty much what you're experiencing on a daily basis. Hi Alex, how would a weighted calisthenics guy go about bulking? Should extra body weight be factored in so even if you're not adding plates, you know you're progressing? Thing is, yes, as you get heavier, the calisthenics exercises become more difficult. But in some cases, the fact you have more muscle mass or just more cushion for the push-in allows you to display slightly better numbers in some lifts. Weighted dip might be a potential example in this case. But that's overcomplicating things. So I'll say that as a general rule, most of the movements will be a little bit harder because of the leverage factor, especially if it's high skill. Weighted pull-ups, yeah, it won't be as easy. So if you do 100 pounds and you gain 40 pounds of fat, it'd probably be close to a plate as a leaner guy. That said, does it matter? If your program is percentage based or you're doing a lot of one rep maxes, not really, because you're still getting the maximum strainage and the repetitions are within the range you're trying to hit. So if you go from 160 to 180 and now your pull-up drops 20 pounds, well, the absolute load is pretty much there regardless. And when you base off that 70% of your one rep max and do reps of 10, you're still in the range. So who gives a fuck? The real question should be, is exercise selection on point? Are you hitting the right volumes? And most importantly, is progressive overload taking place? That's what has to be truly accounted for. Because yeah, your leverages aren't as good for some lifts, but at the end of the day, you can still make progress at a heavier weight. It's just more of a form of weighted calisthenics. So if you're 200 pounds and you do a 100 pound weighted pull-up, is that the same as being 150 doing a 150 weighted pull-up? For some reason, I can't say that it is, because we still have to factor in relative strength. And that does matter when we talk about competition. The Wilks score is a real thing. Why not apply that to the calisthenics movements? So to me, there's a muscle factor that goes beyond just what's displayed total weight-wise. But I could be totally wrong about that. Maybe it actually is the same, but I don't know. I think a lot of fat guys try to justify their strength by saying that, oh, I can do 300-pound pull-ups, when really a lightweight is a bit stronger than them. Hey Alex, how do you ensure your high protein intake with your plant-based diet? Do you use protein shakes or only real food? Simple. I don't follow a high protein plant-based diet. The evidence suggests you only need 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, which is a complete joke to hit on most diets. As long as you're eating minimally processed whole foods with a solid variety, it's gonna happen pretty much every single day without having to try. Now, if you're not quite there with your targets, you can add in a little bit more protein-specific foods, or just have one shake a day and it's a done deal. You're most likely not going to have issues with protein. Now, I know some guys are going to mention the bioavailability aspect. But we have to look at mechanism versus reality. And the truth is, even if plant proteins are slightly less superior on paper, in the real world, you'll still be fine, especially if you're truly following a balanced diet, because now your intake's going to be a little bit higher regardless. So let's say you got 150 grams of pure plant protein, and you're going to mention that, oh, it's not as bioavailable. Well, you're still getting 100 plus, easy, no problem. And if we plug in the actual numbers of what you need for optimal results, you're going to hit the adequate range every single time. And if it's not enough, which it usually will be in most cases, you can do the test yourself. Just have a protein shake just like meat eaters do, because whey is still an insanely popular supplement. Bodybuilders take it, strength athletes, everyone is on that. So you can do the same thing and boom, it's a done deal. Now in my case, I'm not 100% plant-based and I have zero nutritional biases. So I want you guys to understand that. But I'm pretty darn close to it. And in the future, I can absolutely see myself going 100%. But do I use protein shakes as of right now? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I do have access. I have 2 vegan protein powders. They tend to last a long time, and I generally go days without having any protein shakes. Now, if the workout was really brutal and I'm thirsty and I want a little bit of protein without having to have, say, a can of beans, then I'll drink a shake and it's a done deal. It's a nice nighttime snack, by the way, especially if you're watching a good movie or show or whatever, or you're just doing some work on the computer and you're sipping on that shake. So I don't see anything wrong with that. But for me, it's not every day. Hey Alex, I'm experiencing shoulder pain when doing pull-ups and holding my arm overhead. What could that be and how can I fix it? One thing to consider could be the grip width. There's a lot of bodybuilders of the past who said you want to go super wide. That's how you build your lats. In most cases, it tends to lead to shoulder pain. So I don't recommend you go excessive. Medium grip is probably all you need, or a little bit outside shoulder width. But they have to be at the complete edges of the pull-up bar. Hey, for a lot of you that might not agree. Secondly, it could be due to a lack of shoulder mobility. Maybe you're not able to get in that dead hang position. And when you're in that shrugged up spot, many would make the argument that that's how you get rid of shoulder pain completely. So if you're not able to bring that arm back while being up here at the same time, like if just doing this position bothers you, that explains why you got shoulder pain. So maybe you got to do more upper back work as well as more mobility drills as a whole. Great exercise for that, by the way, would be the overhead squat, as well as doing a tremendous amount of band dislocations, face pulls, band pull aparts, you name it. Just do some research about upper back, shoulder mobility drills. But that's pretty much what's lacking here. And you should definitely start doing some dead hangs as well on that pull-up bar with a more narrow grip. Once you open things up, you'll find that the movement feels a lot better. Oh, and one thing additional could be overuse. Maybe you've only been doing one grip for far too long. So that's why using a variety of positions, the neutral, underhand. Basically, if you got a multi-grip pull-up bar, you're probably going to be okay in this regard. And also, be careful one-arm pull-ups. If you're overdoing one side, that can lead to shoulder pain. Though, I doubt you're doing that right now. Hey Alex, you have to lock out your arms and doing the high rep pushdowns and curls for connective tissue work, or is it fine to cut the range of motion a bit on the curls specifically? Thanks, and much love from Pakistan. Well, much love from Canada. You don't need to lock out your arms, but I would recommend it to best develop the tendons and ligaments, because full range of motion training is specific in that way. And if you're going to be locking out your bench press, your extensions, all that good stuff, why would you do half reps on your pushdowns? And the same thing for curls. When you do a deadlift, for example, that arm is going to be fully locked out, but you're still putting stress on the tendon. So to me, you want to match that with the connective tissue work as well. But I will say that it's likely not significant in the sense that this is very lightweight and you're going so fast that it can be difficult to actually reach the maximum extension. Maybe you're going to be a few degrees off. So in that case, does it really matter if we're enhancing the time under tension aspect? So you're getting a lot of blood flow. I don't know. Maybe, just maybe it can balance itself out just for this. It could be the exception. So it's an interesting point. And I can see why some lifters would do that. But you should probably just stick to full range of motion. Worst case, you get really close to it, but not all the way. Just don't do excessive partials. Then it's not going to have the response you're looking for. Hey Alex, how to perform the perfect pull-up? I can do about 12, 15 reps, but my left trap shifts a little high compared to the other. Thanks. Well, probably because you're just banging them out super quickly. You can already do a perfect pull-up. with 12 to 15 being your max. You can't tell me that one flawless rep is not possible. You're just gonna have to drop your ego a bit and lower those repetitions. Maybe instead of getting 15, you'll be acquiring 8, but they'll be perfect as you suggest. So the solution in many cases is simply getting strong enough such that flawless reps can easily be performed. Like in my case, I have no issues doing sternum pull-ups or doing the perfect posterior pelvic tilt while retracting at the same time near the lockout, which some calisthenics athletes find very difficult to do. I can perform that because my 1 rep max is 165 pounds. So by comparison, what is that in terms of lining myself up to hit those particular angles? Most of the time, raising your absolute strength will do a lot for your overall technique. Are Zercher squats worth it? Hell yeah, they are. Every time I do Zercher, sooner or later I get horrible forearm pain that prevents me from lifting for about a week. All it takes is one bad rep where I lean forward a bit too much and I get injured. The heaviest Zercher I've ever done is 160 kilos for 1 rep max and I had no issue. But then I do singles at 130 and mess myself up. Are Zerchers worth doing as your main squat variation, or are they best kept as the light accessory? A lot of things to consider here. First of all, that pain you feel in the forearms eventually goes away. I've been doing Zercher squats for years, and when I first started off, the pain was absolutely immense to the point where I looked like a goddamn heroin addict. Marks everywhere, pain for a week. Like, I hated the exercise with a passion. But then I got some motivation in me and started doing the exercise on a consistent basis despite feeling the pain. I pushed through it for years to the point where I started doing Zercher holds at the end of my program with 500-600 pounds. That's what really helped the most, by the way, doing those crazy overloads. Once you could do that, man, and you strip it down to a full range of motion Zercher squat, you don't feel shit. And that's the truth. So really, it was about adapting to the pain, and eventually I just stopped feeling the pain. Even to this day, I can go months without doing Zerchers. I come in no problem. It just doesn't bother me whatsoever. And there are people who have done well above what I've done. Actually, look at Kiriakos Grizzly. He holds over 1,000 pounds. Now, you can say he's really fat, so maybe that extra cushion is making a difference. But still, the human body is capable of so much if you dedicate yourself to the pursuit of mastering, in this case, the Zercher lifts. So look, when I first started doing the exercise, I would actually take gym mats, what people used to do abs on, and I would wrap it around the bar. And it still hurt. But eventually I started removing those mats. I believe I had 2 of them, right? I switched it out to 1, and then 0. Then I started doing the holds. Next thing you know, my max Zercher squat is 435, by the way, which you have seen on YouTube. This was done in 2017. From the ground. Deadlift it, you get in that deep position, you come back up, right? So I did that, and my elbows didn't hurt whatsoever. No pain in the forearms either. And I've also done high rep work with 225, 250 on Zercher lunges. So based off the fact that your body could adapt, they're worth it. Zerchers have a good reputation for building strong cores, strong upper backs, and teaching you how to sit back on a lot of your movement and correctly using the posterior chain, while also being a great front squat substitute and just providing additional exercise variety without having to buy specialty barbells. What are your thoughts on ditching straight free weight and exclusively working with bands and chains, still using the free weight to load the bar, but always using variable resistance? I'm interested in using this for potential longevity benefits and saving time on workouts. To me, this falls in the category of extreme thinking. Like, I'll be the first to say that bands and chains changed my training forever. I love everything about them, and they do have insane carryover to raw lifts. But that you should do them exclusively is a big mistake in my books, because yes, we're minimizing overuse in the bottom portion of the bench press, but now we're increasing the overload stress at the lockout. And over time, that can increase the wear and tear on your elbows, for example. So we're simply redirecting the overuse, not eliminating it. Plus, it'll be a lot harder to program for your volume work. Because if you do, let's say 60% of your 1 rep max for that overload variation for the day, right? Okay. Yeah, it's 60%. But because it's accommodating resistance, you got to factor in that lockout weight as well. You're adding in those percentage points. So over time, I would say that you're not getting a greater recovery effect when talking about volume work specifically. Also, you're not being as specific as you could be to the raw lifts, and some of these straight weight variations are actually better on recovery. Like a regular floor press feels better than a floor press with 30 or 60 pounds of chains. So why would you leave out that style when it actually arguably does a better job at minimizing overuse? So although strength is strength, you can't tell me that exclusively inverting the strength curve is a good idea. The best thing you could do is just alternate back and forth. Or if you really want to bias towards the band and chain variations, use the lightest tensions possible. Make it super close to the straight weight stuff. So that might mean not doubling your bands or using the lowest chain. So that might mean not doubling your bands or using the lowest chain tension available. Hi Alex, I train full body 2 to 3 times per week. Is it normal that I get little to no soreness after my workouts? I train mostly compound lifts and a few arm isolation exercises. Thanks. Yeah, man, it sounds to me like your program is balanced. You're not overdoing the volume. Basically, there's no bro training going on here. Plus, the frequency is 2 to 3 times a week, and that's the best way of reducing DOMs. People who get the least soreness train the most frequently. Like in my case, it's very similar to you. I don't get sore very often. There might be minute amounts, or if I change and exercise something drastic, or I'm doing grinders in my workouts, but usually on a day-to-day basis, I'm pretty good. And that's because I'm training each muscle group twice a week. I bet if I switched it to once a week, there would absolutely be some soreness. That's why people hate leg days, because they only train them once a week. Plus, they're doing so many exercises while usually incorporating bro techniques as well that tend to make them even more sore. But that soreness doesn't mean you're getting more jacked. Look at your progressive overload and log your measurements over time. If everything is improving, but you're not getting sore, does it really matter? Probably not. All right, guys, final question of the week. Hey, Alex, I hate conventional deads with a passion, but I love sumo. Is it fine to completely replace conventional with sumo and perhaps only do conventional on accessories like RDL, stiff leg? Thanks. Of course. Even if you compete in powerlifting, the sumo deadlift is 100% meet legal. So people can talk all day that, oh, it's cheating, it's unfair. Your own rules allow it. So either you accept the competitors for using that style, or you can continue whining like a little bitch. So you, my friend, you hate conventional. Maybe it doesn't feel right for your leverages. Horrible recovery. Not the best stimulus to fatigue ratio. You just don't want to do it. Okay, don't do it. Do lots of variations of sumo instead. So pull off blocks, do it off a deficit if you need to, do sumo deadlifts with bands, chains. There's so many varieties with just the sumo pull that you're going to be okay. So specificity being 1-to-1 on that level is fine. Plus, you mentioned one of the most important points ever. You're doing accessory work like the RDL, like the stiff-legged deadlift. And if we look at the squat hinge continuum by Greg Nuckols, the RDL is more of a hip hinge than the conventional deadlift. So even though your sumo is less hingy, that doesn't matter in the context of general strength because, first of all, strength is strength. You get a strong enough sumo, you're going to be a strong conventional puller regardless. Look at that guy Jamal. And secondly, when you're doing additional stuff on the side, you hypertrophy all the correct muscles and you're still training that specific movement pattern. In the case of stiff-legged deadlifts, that's even more difficult than a conventional pull. So if you raise your stiff leg from 500 to 545, I wouldn't be surprised if you could do 585, 600 on your first attempt conventional deadlift. That said, I'll end off this question with this. Even if you hate conventional deadlifts, maybe that could be a good thing because you're completely detached to the exercise and it's not your competition lift. So you can still throw it in as a max effort variation and whatever you get on that day, so be it. It's simply another way to strain. So if we're talking about the conjugate system, I would say it's smart to do both sumo and conventional if you plan on using the deadlifts as your main rotation, not really the squats right now. So that's another perspective, but honestly, if you don't want to do that, you'll still acquire an elite pull regardless. With that said, we're done this Q&A. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let's see some more questions down below, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.